Buonasera. My name is Denis Kataev. I'm an independent journalist based in Paris, and it's an honor for me to moderate today Vision Talks webinar, which takes place as a part of the pre-Siena conference week. Today we will address the economic challenges facing the European Union. Our theme sounds simple: how do we spend EU money? But the answer is far from simple. In the current context of war, global political shifts, and economic pressure, where global GDP is declining and import duties are rising, it's more urgent than ever for Europe to respond to this question. So we'll talk about the next EU budget also. To start, I'd like to introduce our key speakers for today. We are honored to welcome Marco Buti, Padua Chair of the Robert Schuman Center at the European University Institute, former Chief of Staff of the EU Commissioner for the Economy, and former Director General for Economic and Financial Affairs at the European Commission. Hello, Marco.
Hi.
We are also joined by a group of outstanding students who will contributing for our topic. Felice Bubici, student in International Science and European Institution at the University of Milan. Hello, Felice. Mattia Gusmini, student in International and Diplomatic Affairs, University of Bologna. Hello. And Odysseas Konstantinakos from the European University Institute. Welcome to all of you. And I hope we will also hear insightful comments from our distinguished discussants. Yes, it's Lenny Benbara, Associate Expert at Cluster 17. Hello, Lenny. And Gregorio de Felice, Chief Economist at Intesa Sanpaolo. Hello, thank you all of taking the time to join us today. And to open our session, I'd like to pass the word to Francesco Grillo, Director of Vision Think Tank. Hello, Francesco.
Thank you very much, Denis. I hope you will find a few seconds afterwards to introduce yourself, because you also have a very interesting story to tell. Let me very quickly reiterate, as I did in the two previous webinars, and I will do even tomorrow, a short introduction to the project. And Valerio, let's go immediately to the next slide here. Just for you to better understand, but I think you are already familiar with the idea. This is not an academic conference, and even less what we call in Italy a convegno. It's what we call a platform for better understanding the nature of the problems to be sort of tackled, and to do some problem solving. So to go from analysis to proper ideas. For doing such a thing, we believe that we need to put together academia, by the way, not only professors, but also students, with business, media, and policymakers. The platform is very much multi-partisan. We will most likely have also the Patriots today. So we're going from the Patriots up to the Green European Foundation. We also invited the left. We will have all people coming from all major EU countries, but also from the outside. And again, it is not just a conference. It starts before the conference, as with this webinar, and it will continue after the conference. So the idea is to advocate the ideas that we will have in this final position paper. If you go to the next slide very quickly, Valerio.
Yeah, we don't see any slide. At least I don't.
You do, people?
I don't see any slide.
Yes, I do.
I mean, I see mine that I'm ready to share, but not yours.
Okay.
Yes, because there are more folders, so you can switch the folder.
Okay, because I was absolutely looking to my slides, and I'm not the one to share them, so I don't know why.
Okay,
No,
now
just
I can
because you
see.
have-
Okay, see, sorry,
Okay, Marco,
that's right. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, I can see
okay,
now.
no, because okay, all right. Okay, so this is a little bit the process. That not all problem solving groups are exactly following, but this is a little bit the idea. We have, if you want, a sort of question that we as Vision are asking to this group of people in terms of strategic notes to be untied. Then we have a problem setting paper. In this case, we have the slides from Marco Buti that hopefully has tried to answer our question. Then we have a webinar. The webinar will hopefully transform the paper or the slides doing the problem setting into an initial problem solving with some ideas to be given to the physical conference next week. And this will happen on Thursday morning. On Saturday morning, just to clarify the process, Odysseas, Ulisse with Mattia and Felice, then you will also introduce yourself briefly, will hopefully somehow translate the initial paper for the Siena conference into this final, say, 2-3 pages that will go into the final paper. I'm sure that the process is not 100% clear to you, but do not worry, we will go back to it. Okay, it's the idea is just that we will progressively transform this thing into something which makes sense and is also, as today very often we use this word, inclusive. Okay, so this is the idea, and I now will pass the floor to Denis and Marco for the slides. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francesco. Briefly introduce myself. My name is Denis Kataev. I'm a Russian journalist in exile now, working for TV Rain channel. It's a main independent channel from Russia. I with my colleagues left Russia after the start of the war in 2022. Since then, we have been operating from Europe. As for me, I'm based in Paris, as you know, yes, and my colleagues, for example, in Amsterdam. And as for me, I focus on European politics, European affairs, and French politics especially. So it's very interesting for me to participate in this conference. And now, for example, we broadcast via YouTube for Russian audience also, and our audience around of 20 million viewers each month in Russia. So thank you very much. And now I think that I can pass the word to Marco Buti and the student. Marco, please.
You are muted.
Marco? Marco?
You are muted.
Marco, please sound.
Okay, now it's okay. I think, let's see.
The presentation. We can ask to.
Okay, can you see it? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Can you confirm that you see it?
Yeah,
we can.
Okay, fine. Okay, so basically, what I'm going to do is that I think we'll need to try to convince the audience in Pontignano to take the Commission President seriously when she says the status quo is not an option. and interpret it in a way that is probably a bit more forthcoming than what she would probably do. So, okay, let me go through a few slides. This one here is, it tries to, give a picture of the evolution over time of the EU budget, taking into account the three classic functions of government, which is, allocation, stabilization, and redistribution. This comes from Musgrave, is a classic public finance literature. And what you can see there, we have the pre-1988. So when we had, the classic yearly budget, and that was a permanent budget warfare between the institutions because they couldn't agree on an annual basis. So the budget was delayed, the adoption. So it was a very messy and inefficient process. Comes Delors and proposes the package Delors 1 and then Delors 2, which provides a multi-year agreement. So it's a big war, big battle once every 7 years, basically. And then the process is steady because the multi-year budget has been adopted. This has the advantage of budgetary peace, but it has the disadvantage of a static budget, because it's very, very difficult to adapt the budget according to the priorities, to the evolving priorities. So the cost became increasingly clear of an excessively static budget. Then, as always with Europe, we change things when we are hit by big crisis. And here you can see the period of, by and large, of the global financial crisis, global and the sovereign debt crisis, and there, and then subsequently the pandemic crisis. In both cases, the MFF were supplemented by other instruments, but they were not really changed. So they were adapted at the margin, but the big change came from outside. It was outside the union. In the case of the global financial crisis, we setting up of the EFSF, ESM in an intergovernmental manner. And in the case of COVID, it was within the EU, but it was beside, parallel to the MFF, but with next generation EU. So that's why I put MFF plus, MFF plus plus. So, I mean, the issues that we have in the final column here that I try to put there as a key issues for the future is on the issue of stabilization is the flexibility of the budget to adapt it to respond to shocks. On the allocation side, the shift to a budget that responds to key priorities of the Union by supplying European public goods in various areas. And in terms of redistribution, we had to throw the ball in the future and see how we could accommodate the next enlargement, which is going to be very stressful for the budget. Now, when we come to assess the budget, 20 years ago, even a little bit more, I was rapporteur of for the Delors, for the Sapir report, which was published in 2003. And at the time, we famously put at the beginning of a chapter of the EU budget, the statement that the EU budget is an historical relic. So the question today is this still a historical relic or not? The three dimensions to answer these questions are these three, in my view: size, composition, and flexibility. So size, we know that the EU budget has remained around 1% of GDP. It is around the budget of Denmark, just to have a bit of a point of comparison. So very, very small. Second, in terms of composition, there has been an evolution couple of decades ago, it was essentially the common agricultural policy, which consumed maybe 60% of the budget. Now it is a common agricultural policy and cohesion policy, which take about 2/3 of the budget. So one can question whether this composition here is the right one, considering that, you know, for many other more urgent priorities, the EU budget does very, very little. So the EU budget, yes, it has evolved, but reality has evolved much more quickly than the EU budget has adapted in terms of composition. And finally, on flexibility, as I said before, the 7-year budget, the 7-year MFF make it very difficult to change priorities. So to shift resources from one chapter to another, it is extenuating. The Commission has used all the tricks, but it has reached the limits of those tricks. So I think when we look at the next budget, we have to address these 3 dimensions: size, composition, and flexibility. Now, if one thinks that the key issues here are responding, making the budget coherent with the new priorities of the EU, then one should build an European public goods based budget. So on the expenditure side, for what is EU genuine or transnational projects, you have genuine European public goods. I think for transfer to member states, one will have to consider output and outcome based, so performance based transfers of the type of Next Generation EU. Trying to obviously apprehend the pros and cons of what has happened with Next Generation EU since COVID. And then we have to address the issue of revenue, so the financing of the budget, by considering new own resources and EU bonds. In the past, revenue has somehow been left aside, and then when priorities was there was an agreement on new priorities on the spending side, the revenue came a bit automatically, essentially via GNI contribution, so which is proportional to the GDP of member states. I think in the new budget, we cannot treat, in my view, the own resources as a residual, but we'll have to tackle the issue of own resources in the financing head on. If one looks at the public goods, here I go very quickly, but I have papers on this, you can look at that, and we can discuss later. What are how do I identify European public goods? I think essentially three rationales. One, from the economic literature, public economics and fiscal federalism, the more institutional aspects, and finally the more political elements. And here what you see in the second column, I don't have time now to elaborate, but are some of the elements which underpin these three broad rationales. If you take this filter and apply to what are the priorities, then you find, when I find here, 6 areas essentially where you can locate European public goods. So it's the triple transition: digital, green, and social transition. The issue of critical raw material, we know how important that is. The issue of security, defense, and finally health. These are areas one has to identify projects within that. It's not that the full area becomes a matter of EU competence, but within that you can identify some key projects which become European public goods, and you can see some examples here in my third column. So I think a message should come out, I think, loud and clear in the final report on what it means an EPG-based budget, and what how to go about it, and what kind of priorities one should focus on. I think there are 2 elements that I think could be, in my view, very important if they come out in the Pontignano paper. The first one is that one should not look at the EU budget in isolation. The Union has levers to pursue its priorities, which are not only budgetary. So, and I think, and these dimensions, which is beside the EU budget, you have the EU regulation and also the coordination of national policies. These three different dimensions have too often in the past been treated separately. Now, what we should do is to set the priorities and then decide how much of that would be pursued via the EU budget, so resources, budgetary resources, how much that would be pursued via regulation, and how much would that be pursued via coordination of national policies. In the past, the difficulties in agreeing on the budget have led to a double down on the regulation side, so which has complicated a lot the life of enterprises and the single market. So one should look at the regulation in a more dynamic way. So this is the first element that I think would be an important message of looking in to the pursuing of priorities at the EU level via these three levers. The second one is this one here, which is the vertical coordination. Again, the EU budget should not looked at in isolation. One should have a vertical coordination between EU budget and national budget in pursuing the same or the agreed priorities. So here what you see in this is a combination of delivery and financing, national and the EU. This comes from a paper. I used this scheme here several times. Originally it was a paper with George Papakonstantinou back a couple of years ago. So what you see here, the combinations are delivery and financing taking place at national level. So this means that basically you set the priorities, but then the delivery and the financing comes at the national level. This is essentially the operation of the Stability and Growth Pact. So when you have some flexibility there to reallocate resources towards certain EU priorities or projects which are important at the EU level, and you pursue it at the national level. So this is the looser form of European public goods. Then you have the other combination. The second one, you have the delivery at the EU level, financing at the national level. These typically, when we talked about demand aggregation and public procurement, that's where you get. So it's quadrant B. Vaccines, and now the issue of weapons and defense equipment. You have the resources at the national level, but they are aggregated at the EU level through what is called in budgetary terms externally assigned revenue. Then you have the combination of financing at the EU level and delivery at the national level. This is the recovery and resilience facility type. Here, compared to the national recovery and reform programs, we should put more emphasis on transnational projects. And finally, you have the genuine European public goods, where delivery and financing takes place both at the European level. Now, the question always comes, and this is the question that Jean Monnet, in the final years of his life, when people went to visit him, said, yes, you have a beautiful plan, but what is the first step? Where do you start from? And here, I think in the current circumstances, I think defense seems to me naturally being the first step that we should entertain. Now, and so here, what is going on here for the moment, you see what is in green, national escape clause in the implementation of the Stability and Growth Pact, and the safe loans, which is the up to 150 billion of loans from the Union for joint projects. So these two are already there. They are definitely not enough, and there is not sufficient traction for loans, purely loans-based, support from the Union. So what should be checked is whether there is a political willingness, the political capital to fill quadrant C and quadrant D. So quadrant C is a potential fund outside the MFF to support national defense projects, and the other one doing things at the European level, both in terms of financing and delivery. And then you see in quadrant D you have some examples. I think that was my presentation and some possible avenues of where to work. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Marco. It was very interesting, especially as for me, about this common defense as an RPG. Would you like to add something, Felice, maybe, or Matti, or no? What for students? If not, we can go.
I mean, they should say something, definitely.
Yeah. Of course, Felice, maybe.
Please.
You start.
Okay, I'll start. I'm here because I participated to the European Panel for Citizens of the European Union. That was a project where some citizens from all over Europe were called to discuss what, for our point of view, were the European Union need to do in terms of policy to make our life better. It was really general because not everyone have common knowledge of how the European Union works. So it was at the start difficult to converge the the people that not knowledge enough of the European Union, but at the end we came to some key points, and those key points were what were the common problem from all over Europe. We need to concentrate on that, and there are some key points for example, healthcare, the school system in general, the defense, which is really important now, was a controversial theme because not everyone agree on what European need to do in terms of actions. So even though that was a hard point, we still done the work. I think it was really beautiful to see how people from such different countries could agree to some points. For example, I was in a team with Swedish and French people, so see how in some team, for example, the security of the cities and the boards were common team. It impressed me because I didn't thought that those could be common team. I don't know if Mattia would like to add something. I think this was the concept of the EU panel for citizens.
Yes, thank you, Felice. I participated in the same panel, but in a different group. So I was one of the 150 selected citizens from all over the European Union. And I worked in a group with Spanish, a girl from Latvia, and Greeks. And my group worked specifically on education. The main focus for the first session was talking about education. What are the main problems of education in the European countries, and how the European Union can give an added value to the national budget in terms of education. And then in the last session, we proposed two main suggestions for the Commission about the unequal access to the education for all levels, from children to the adult education, and also a proposal about the education about the European knowledge, because nowadays skeptical movements against Europe in the far right are burning in all over the European Union. So we need to focus on give a strong education about what is the EU budget, what are the institutions of the European Union, what is the common history, because the member states ignore that subjects and are only focused on the main subjects, even if the national budget works on the education, on the national education, and so it is a policy only managed by the member states. So it is an issue that we need to solve, but we propose it to the European Commission, but because there are many different ways. Well, for example, the European Union can give suggestions for the member states without being without something mandatory. So my work was about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Mattia. Thank you for your contribution. And Odysseas, please, it's your turn.
Thank you, Denis, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be part of this project, as Francesco put it. So, a few words about myself. I'm a PhD candidate at the European University Institute. I work on the intersection of political science and EU governance and macroeconomics. So I'm trying to understand how macroeconomic policy is changing in the EU from crisis to crisis. So being Greek, crisis here is a key word and has shaped a bit my research trajectory. But apart from that, I also had a very similar experience to what Alice and Mattia described right before, because 2 years ago we hosted at the EUI European Citizens Assembly. It was something very close to what you just described, where we brought people from all over Europe, randomly selected, and we split them into groups and we had them deliberate and come up with recommendations for the European Union. I was part of the kind of organizing committee, helping citizens make informed decisions, help them with fact-checking and providing evidence when necessary. So I kind of empathize with what you just said, and I'm really curious to see how this project is going to unfold. Now, specifically to the theme of our session and what Marco just described, what Marco just presented, I think the main challenge that we have next week while preparing this kind of 2-3 pages statement on our topic is how do we create something relatively intuitive and simple for a larger audience that maybe does not have as close expertise or experience with EU budgets? Because I have studied a bit EU budgets and I have taken courses back in my student years at the university. And I have to tell you, if you don't know this already, that the MFF negotiations, the EU budget negotiations, are extremely complicated and difficult and technical. And it takes a lifetime to become an expert like Marco. So the key challenge for us is how do we keep the jest out of this, and how do we kind of maintain the trade-offs and the combinations, complementarities that Marco mentioned and showed in his triangles with the political drive that I think we have to bring forward. And that political drive is the sheer necessity of a bigger and more efficient and targeted EU budget for the coming years in order to address all these big challenges that we have in front of us. I stop here. I hope I've not been so generic, and I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Odysseas. Thank you very much, Marco, again, and thanks to the students as well. It's very interesting project. And we'll see, I think, this work next week. And now we move to the discussant panel. Lenny, Gregorio, we are looking forward to your comments. Yes. Who would like to speak next? Lenny, maybe you will start.
Yes, maybe a few words because I have to leave at 45. So just thank you very much, Marco, for this presentation. Very complete, I think, in terms of the political difficulties we have with this budget. I guess I want to focus on two levers that, in my opinion, are really important for the next EU budget. The first one is the possibility of increasing the gaining our own resources of the European Union. I think we have to assume a clear debate on this issue because we are talking. It's been a long time that we have this debate, but with the geopolitical context in which we are now in do you hear me? Sorry, Marco. I see you struggling to hear me. Okay. In regard to the context of the EU right now, I think it is one of the main possibilities to increase the EU budget. And I agree with you that we should focus it on military spending. But as I am working with Cluster 17, what I can tell is that military spending is not something that is consensual in the European Union. It is not a common topic of agreement. We just conducted a 9 countries poll on this issue. And for example, we know that the Italian public opinion is very opposed to military spending. It is a good way to, let's say, evade the debate to put those spendings at the European Union level. But what is sure is that we cannot start only with military spending, even if it is a clear priority, and I completely agree with you. I think there are at least two other topics. The first one is AI, because we are also in a context of geopolitical tensions regarding technological innovation, and we can see the consequences in the United States not having a sovereign European EU AI industry is a real disadvantage in this context. The second one is the ecological transition, because we know if we take an industrial approach, there are a lot of when you look at what is accomplishing China, it is clearly one of the main levi of growth. So I think those three topics are the key priorities, and we should not how do we say in English? I think we should also assume that we could imagine using tariffs to finance that kind of investment. And when I say tariffs, I say it in the sense of what the United States is accomplishing. You can propose a carbon border adjustment mechanism. You can also propose digital and financial transaction taxes, but you'll at some point also need tariffs and broader tariffs. And I think it is where we are heading, even if we don't want to go this way. And I think it is very important to find the industrial sectors that would be, let's say, of a common agreement between the European states where you could put tariffs. The second topic, the second lever for me is exploring more the approach of the enhanced cooperation for the common debt, because we know that we have had like 20 years of debate about joint debt, joint indebtment, Eurobonds, solidarity between states. but we have to move forward. And what we see is that the European Union is going forward when you have crisis, when you have geopolitical crisis, when you have COVID, when you have a financial crisis. So the movement brings the movement, and as Odysseas just said, the political negotiations for the European budget are very complicated. We will need at some point that some states, not all states, start putting in place a common infrastructure of indebtedness to finance key common goods at the European level. And I think it is something that has to be in the debate right now, because we cannot wait for Hungary to invest in military spending. We cannot, yes, there are a lot of topics. And the last element that I would like to put in the debate is that we also should, I think, be focused more those spendings on the key priorities, and not starting to enlarge too much the categories of spendings that could enter in any increase of the EU budget. Because if you do that, it will always end up as very tricky political negotiations between states and between sectors. So the common ground will only be found on very small areas, and I think that we have to start with that to legitimate new tools. I will end here, but happy to participate to this debate, and I hope that we will have time to continue in Siena. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenny. We have to move forward. I agree with this, and this is a big question: how to increase defense spendings. Yes, of course, it's a big question for Europe. And so, Gregorio the Felice is here with us.
Yes, I'm here, Denis.
Hello, Gregorio. Thank you very much.
The only problem is that in this moment I'm driving the car, and so I'm trying to stop a second.
But we can hear you. It's okay. We can hear you.
No. 1 second. I found a place where to park
Okay.
the car, and I can switch on also my camera, which I think it's not very polite.
Okay.
Here we are. Okay.
Yeah.
A couple of remarks. So the first one is that I was a little bit shocked by the first two interventions, Alice and Mattia, where they talked about the lack of knowledge about the working of the union at the European level, exactly. So this means that politicians in many member states are not doing their job, are not spending time to explain what's going on, what is the match we have to play at the global level. A second remark regards this preference for the defense spending. Also, Marco Buti talked about that in his introduction. I mean, if we talk about that as a first step, I can agree, but it's not the first priority of the Union. I believe that the first priority is the competitiveness, and we are risking a lot. We are running big risks in this, let me say, dialogue or conflict or war between the US and China. We are losing competitiveness. We need to have much more investments, not only for the green transition, but also as far as innovation. The last speech talked about the artificial intelligence, but it's not only that. We have an issue of research spending, of education system. where perhaps the US are even worse than we are, apart from some big exception. But generally speaking, I would be very pleased to have common debt, even if we have to take into consideration that common debt is always paid by the taxpayers, as the national debt is. But at least with common debt, we can have we can give a signal of unity and of the irreversibility of the euro. And in this moment, where the US dollar is losing momentum as a reserve currency, having more safe assets and giving the euro more attractiveness, we can gain market share as a reserve currency. Also, the governor of the Bank of Italy, Fabio Panetta, pointed out the necessity of having common debt for some of the reasons I'm mentioning, but also for other reasons for increasing the capital markets in the Eurozone and so on. Okay, that's it for now.
Thank you much, Gregorio. Thank you very much for our discussions. And so now it's perfect time to move to a Q&A session. And do you maybe have any questions or any comments for that already talked? And if it's possible, I would like to start with my question to Marco, because it's also the question about competitiveness of European Union that already mentioned, just mentioned Gregorio. How urgently is Europe able to reshape its economic policy in case the worst case scenario under Trump, voila. What do you think? Are there possibilities to increase this defenses, education, defense system? So are there possibilities, levers, in this urgent scenario, in this scenario under Trump unfolds? What do you think about this, Marco?
Okay, let me react to this as well as maybe some other things. And then I don't know, Francesco, you want to come in first or do you want to come in after? Tell me. After, okay. No, I mean, just a couple of reflections which should guide us, I mean, in the elaboration of the paper. Taking into account a bit what colleagues have said so far. So we have clearly a challenge of convincing leaders and convincing citizens that reforming the EU budget within a global reforms of the EU governance is a key strategic objective. Now, I think as to the citizens, what came out from the experience of a European Citizens Panel, Mattia, Alice mentioned that, is that if one explains things properly, citizens get it. So I don't think we should just say, you know, it is so complicated that it's mission impossible. I think the main, apart from the content of the 22 recommendations, I think what was important on the experience of the European Citizens Panel was the method. So I think that is a key issue. And this cannot be, we are at a phase of such an existential moment in our life as Europeans, that you cannot do things by stealth. You cannot do things via the back door. I think the issue of democratic involvement has to take place head on. I think this is a message I think should come out loud and clear from the Pontignano paper. This is the citizens. Then you have the leaders. I think for the leaders, what one should put to clearly emphasize is, in my view, two things. One is that if they do not make courageous choices right now, crossing difficult red lines, they are going to pay a hefty price in the current geopolitical context. So the geopolitical ramifications of doing or not doing certain things are absolutely major. So I think that is something that we should try to convince them. So you cannot separate the EU budget, putting it in the committees, in the usual EU machinery, where you have committees, subcommittees, task forces, etc., all chewing up things and spitting out something not palatable. But you have to clearly address the key strategic issues, because these are reforming this time the EU budget is key. And by the way, the Commission is going to come forward on the 16th of July. So I think the timing of our deliberations are quite important. You should try to give as much prominence as possible. I think the second point for the leaders is that doing certain things at the European level, meaning that you apply the subsidiarity principle and certain things are clearly public goods that you more effectively and more efficiently supply at the European level, this implies that you can spend less at the national level. So the idea that it is always adding up in terms of tax pressure, in terms of, this has to be debunked. So I think this is a second message that I think leaders should understand. Now, on Gregorio and also on the Denis, your question, I put there the defense, not the alpha and the omega, but as the trigger point in the present juncture. But I agree clearly that one should not put all the eggs in the defense basket. So I think this is another, and usually that what happens. We know that preferences of countries are different, heterogeneous with respect to the defense spending. So usually, and that when you come to an agreement, you try to put in the basket different things so that you can please more someone and to compensate for swallowing something that they don't like particularly. So clearly, defense, the broad issues of competitiveness are, I think, the name of the game. So I conclude with just 2 points which I think came out, and I think we can retake it up as bullets in our paper. We cannot proceed in let's say, by marginal additions or subtractions. Or from the current budget. So you have this, and then let's do €1 more there, €1 there. We have to adopt a logic of zero-based budgeting, because then clearly one does not tell a fairy tale, but the initial approach should be that one, and then you confront obviously the constraints, also politically and institutionally, and also legally, but you cannot proceed by the delta, simply adding. So this is one point. Second point, which is consistent with it, one cannot go for the minimum common denominator, where you just find the little area which joins up all the preferences of all the countries, because that would be almost an empty set, and not at the à la hauteur of what is needed now. Okay, if you take the approach there, then one should draw some consequences in institutional terms. Coalition of the willing could be a possibility on certain areas, but clearly one has to acknowledge the trade-offs and the difficulties there, because it would, in a sense, run against the unity of the budget. So one has to be a bit eclectic in the solutions on that front. Now, finally, and I'm going to send it to all of you, and maybe Francesco can distribute it, because I just published today a CPR, Vox EU, on how to deal with Trump, on what to do and what not to do. So you read that, and I think you'll see a bit what, in my view, how to go about it.
Thank you very much, Mario, for this. For Marco, sorry, Marco, for this interesting view. So, does anyone want to add something? Maybe Gregorio or Fran?
Can I?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we are doing a fantastic job. I agree basically with everything that Marco said. I'm also surprised because he seems to me this zero-based budget is very radical. So I super like the idea that democracy and citizen engagement is their energy is absolutely crucial. I completely agree with you, Odysseas, that it is a very difficult job to try to change even marginally the budget. Otherwise, we do not understand why the common agricultural policy is still 30% of the entire monster here. Two suggestions, which probably are a little bit like an elaboration of what Marco has just said. I think the two ingredients that I would try to use to answer to the Monet question, which is still the very fundamental, what we do tomorrow, okay? Number one, we probably need to be very clear in terms of what we really mean by possible European public good. So, for instance, I probably would not talk of defense as such, but I would more talk about AI-based drones, which is an area where Europe is much behind even Ukraine. Okay, something which is more precise. What we really want to do with the EU budget, even more if it is financed through common debt. For instance, I like very much the not new idea of trans-European high-speed trains, which is something which we are still missing. But I like the idea because it's very, very clear. What do we do? What do we want to do with that money? Or Erasmus compulsory, or Erasmus for everybody. That's clearly an European public good, because it does not make sense to have Erasmus for each country, and that probably allows to engage people because they understand what we want to do with that money, and allows also the construction of two key performance indicators that really can say whether the money has been successful or not. That's extremely important. And Marco, we need to probably acknowledge sooner or later that even the next generation EU was not exactly successful on that. Number two, completely agree, flexibility. Probably we need also to think about an idea to overcome the unity of the EU budget, because again, what Lenny was saying is very true. Even if we want to more clearly say that we mean by European public good AI-based drones, okay? we may still have a number of European countries, even about the founding members, do not agree with that. So we need to allow, probably we need to construct a format, a model, an instrument by which 6 countries, maybe Poland and the others, the Baltic states or whoever, can even issue EU debt for themselves, no? To finance such a thing. So flexibility and being very clear in terms of what we want to deliver.
Thank you very much, Gregorio, for this comment. So maybe Francesco perhaps would like to say something.
No, I am Francesco, and Gregorio is about to talk.
Francesco, sorry, Francesco.
Gregorio is the driver.
Gregorio, no, Gregorio is not here.
No, Gregorio is here, but he's not me.
Oh, yes, I understand, because it's my mistake. Yeah. Gregorio? No.
The point is exactly what Marco and Francesco said. So we have to figure out which topics can reach a sort of consensus at political level. And so I think of transnational projects, because it's clear that if, I don't know, one member state asks, I don't know, Germany or the Union to finance a national project, it doesn't work. But high-speed train, as Francesco said, or artificial intelligence, or Erasmus, Francesco, if I'm not wrong, said the compulsory Erasmus. A project like this can help the competitiveness and reaching a higher consensus. The issue of defense spending, the defense, the protection issue, security and so on, is very popular in the Baltic regions, in Poland, in Germany. All of the northern east borders of countries with that border are very interested in. You know, in Italy, Spain, France, perhaps the interest is much lower. And so I'm pretty sure that those 800 billion of euros will not be requested or spent. Thanks.
Thank you, Gregorio. Thank you for us. Is there any more questions or comments for now? Because we don't have much time.
Denis, I see a question/comment from Matteo Ferrazzi on the Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes. If Matteo is here, I can allow him to speak. So because I see the question is quite long. Okay.
Yeah.
Matteo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have question?
Matteo, go ahead. Theo?
Maybe it's not here.
Matteo?
Well, Denis, can you read the question?
Yeah, so it's if not, we will have to conclude our discussion. Thank you all. Thank you.
No, aspetta, Denis, there is a question from Matteo. If you
I don't know where is, so I don't know about the question from Matteo.
Okay, I can
Sorry.
I can read it.
I don't.
Okay.
No. I don't know. Do you
can
do
I
you
read
have
it?
this question?
Yes, I do.
Because
okay, one question of the communication of the EU Commission regarding the allocation of the budget. The EU budget is very static you underline, and it is true. I think it is about you, Odysseas. On the other hand, anytime there are new priorities, green, defense, housing, etc., it sounds like the money available is substantial. For instance, 800 billion are mobilized for Rearm EU to finance a massive ramp up of defense spending. However, EU funding is limited. Resources are mainly national in case the states will decide to use them for this purpose. Is this communication? So he's talking about communication, basically. Is this communication strong and beneficial, or the contrary, it is not stressing enough among the public the need of additional resources at the EU level? Announcing large amounts of money, which is fake, is of course creating expectation, in some case resistance among the public. So this is it is a question more about communication, and I think it's for all of you.
Maybe Marco?
No, I mean, I agree. I think there is a question of perception, and I think this the combination at the time of the not very suitable name, which was Rearm EU, and the 800 created, created wrong vibes, in the communication. First of all, the 800 is all. It is if in case all member states use the opportunity to take to apply for the national escape clause, and if on top of that they would take up all the 150 billion, neither of that is happening. So and Rearm was not very it not go through well in the public opinion, at least in a number of member states. So that was okay. I think this issue here is a bit related to the question of democracy and perception, carrying the citizens. So we have to take care of that element also.
Okay. Are there any comments for this question of?
No, basically we all agree with Matteo. Very, I think. We call it the game of the three cards, il gioco delle tre carte. So the money are always the same, but it seems that it is multiplied, like for a miracle, which is not right, not even communication wise.
Okay.
You agree, Odysseas? Yes.
Absolutely, and it's the same story with the Juncker investment plan. I think it starts from there, like creating some kind of big magic number to create momentum and attract the attention of the public. But I think that this kind of sums of money no longer make sense. Like you hear this sum of money and what do you make out of it? So even for our common exercise here, I think the way to go is to focus on specific missions and objectives, public goods. What do we want to achieve with this money? Now, how much of this money and where exactly we're going to find it, maybe it's a bit secondary and more technical, but the mission approach, the EPG one is the right one here to drive the message home.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can we I don't know, can we agree that I think there is quite large consensus, I mean, at least amongst us, on the approach. So what I think it could be done is if Odysseas, maybe together with Alice and Mattia, maybe Odysseas can take the pen. If you start from my initial slides, and a bit you plug in a bit the comments that have been offered, and do a first draft of a 3-page paper, which could be a first tentative input to the conference. I think that would be, we circulate between us, we comment on that, and we have a couple of iterations so that what comes to the on the 19th is already a bit chewed. Huh?
I can do that.
I think
I
that's
already have some
important. I would
notes.
say it's important for me because as I have already told Francesco, I'm going to be there Thursday afternoon and Friday. By Friday evening, I have to go because I'm traveling to Brussels on Saturday morning. So the more we can do in advance and on the thing is at least in terms of what I can contribute to has to come reasonably early on.
So this is the sooner the better, so that we circulate to all participants.
And I mean, we have also we have in circulation and I have shared a draft with Odysseas, Felice, and Mattia of something that George, Papa Konstantinos, and myself have written based on the European Citizens Panel, and some of the things that I have indicated in the I have stressed in my presentation are already there. So Odysseas, you can reuse also some of that text if you see fit.
Okay. I have
Thank you so
notes
much.
for our discussion, and I think we can have a text in the coming days.
Fantastic, Odysseas.
We are all in the same group with Alice and Mattia. Siamo allo stesso gruppo. Giusto?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Denis, a lot. Really. We will try to do the same tomorrow with the last webinar, which will be, in fact, on is there an European way to artificial intelligence? So it's a little bit like connected. They are all connected at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. If you want to join, it would be great. Also, you, Odysseas, Mattia, and Felice, and everybody. And we will see you physically in Siena.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much.